Oh, okay. Good morning and welcome to Bible study time. It's the 1st of March. Gosh, things were really different around here this week. It was a pretty good week weather-wise, but what a good week health-wise, and lots of us kind of fought some sickness stuff throughout the week, and some of us are still doing it. But I feel like I'm going to live, and that's a good sign. So I want to bring your attention to a new unit that we start today. It's entitled "All Signs." Keyword is signs. All signs point to Jesus. And the writer of this material has taken the signs or the seven um, um, or seven of the miracles or miraculous things that Jesus did in the book of John, and he's put them in a study. And so we're going to go through those seven things throughout the next 7 weeks, which will lead us up to pretty close to Easter. Easter is April 20th. So I'm looking forward to these. The Gospel of John is just a great, rich um, read, or a teaching for us anyway about the life of Jesus. Um, and in that light of that, we have four Gospels that really tell us about who Jesus is that have been recorded for us for history or through history. Matthew, Mark, Luke are synoptics. They are similar in nature, other than they wrote to a certain audience with a specific theme. But when we get to John, John is in some ways more descriptive. He's some ways more spiritual than the others. They just told you a lot of historical facts about Jesus and told you the results, which gives you the ability to reach a conclusion on spiritually what does it mean. But John kind of goes a little farther and he stretches your spiritual thought in some places. And so that's why oftentimes people will, have you read the synoptics if you're new to the scriptures, but also then have you read John because he is just one who makes a map or makes a roadway to the gospel and explains who Jesus is. So these seven miracles or signs that we're going to look at over the next few weeks are all signs point to Jesus, and we begin with the first miracle that Jesus is recorded to have performed, and that is in John chapter 2. And so let's begin there. And the title of this lesson I wrote on the board is "The Sign of His Glory." You can see it above my right shoulder. There it is. I'll get the right one up there. And the theme is Jesus' work in our lives. So what is the work of Jesus in our lives? Well, we're going to see part of that in this sign of his glory. Okay. We begin John chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "On the third day, a wedding took place in Cana of Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. And Jesus said to his disciples, and Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding as well. And when the wine ran out, Jesus' mother told him, 'They don't have any wine.'" In verse 4, "What has this concern of yours to do with me, woman?" he asked. "My hour has not yet come." So let's just kind of pick this up a little bit. And I don't know, the writer of the commentary this time, he entitled this "Jesus, We Have a Problem." And Mary, the mother of Jesus, comes to Jesus with a literal problem. There's a problem in the process here. I guess I could start today because I'm in the room with couples who I would say were, at least I should say today, of all the weddings I've been able to officiate in my life. All three of these would be the best weddings I've ever been to. They would be tied for second place in the best weddings I've ever been to. Of course, I'd have to say, when Ellen decided she'd marry me, that was the best wedding I've ever been to. But anyway, but it's fun, to think about weddings because I love weddings. Weddings are just, they should be joyous. They should be happy. They should be um, a promise and filled with hope because there's a man and a woman who are committing themselves to each other, and they're looking forward to the life that God has for them. And they'll all live happily ever after, right? Well, not always. But we strive to learn through the unhappies in order to get to the happy ever after. And that's what commitment and faith and true covenant is really about. Well, so here we are. We've got a problem. It says on the third day, a wedding took place. Third day from what? Well, in chapter 1 of John, we don't know if it was 3 days after the fact that Jesus was at Bethsaida. We don't know if it was 3 days after the fact that he'd had a conversation with Nathaniel. But somewhere in there, it was 3 days later after this. And there was a wedding in Cana. If you are kind of familiar with Holy Land, you're familiar a little bit with Israel, you kind of know that the Mediterranean Sea, as you look at it on a map, it's on the left. And you look at it on the map, the River Jordan, the Sea of Galilee, the Dead Sea are all on the right. As you look at it on a map, so the west is the Mediterranean, east is the Jordan River Valley. And then at the Sea of Galilee, that is called the Galilee area. They call it the Galilee. And so in that area, if you go just a little bit west from the Sea of Galilee, there's a city called Nazareth. And Nazareth, of course, is where Mary and Joseph were from when the announcement was made that Mary would give birth to the Messiah. The city of Nazareth is where they returned eventually after Jesus was born and where he was raised. And so Nazareth is there just west. It's about a third of the way from the Jordan River Valley or the Sea of Galilee over to the Mediterranean. And city of Nazareth, having been to Israel, they build cities on these hills of rock. I mean, you just think to yourself, excuse me, how did they get, to build these cities on these rocks? I mean, it's just nothing but rocks, right? Well, that's what they do, and that's the way it is. And they've done it for many, many centuries. So anyways, city of Nazareth is there. And then a little bit on west, there's a city called Cana. And Cana is not a very big town. We didn't go to Cana when we were there. Some friends of ours went just a few months before us to visit Israel, and their tour actually incorporated Cana. They had a mock wedding there. It's kind of cool. I don't think they drank wine, but I don't know. Anyway, and so it's kind of in that same vicinity of the Sea of Galilee to the west of that. Okay. So it's quite possible that Mary, it was a family member, and Mary went to help. She might have even been a part of the, serving crew or something. We don't know. We're not really told those facts, but it's possible even that Mary went there early in order to help out and to make sure everything was set for the wedding. Now, they didn't have, okay, at 2:00 on this afternoon, we're having a wedding, and then, it'll last about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we're going to go over here for a reception. It'll last a couple of hours, and been a great day. We're all tired, and all our money's gone, and now we get on with the wedding, or we get on with the marriage kind of thing. No, they had like big celebrations. It might last 2, 3, maybe even 4 days. So we know Mary went ahead of time. Jesus and the disciples get there, and the party's on. I mean, the party is on. It's been on so long that when Jesus and the disciples get there, and boy, I wish we knew, why were the disciples invited? Were they wedding crashers? We don't know what they were, but we know that they got there, and the good wedding or the good wine is gone. Now, here's the sequence in which they did this. They would serve the good wine early on in the celebration, and then they would, if they had less wine, they would serve it later because, your taste has been saturated with all these foods and all these other things that you've eaten. So you might not know the difference. As long as it's wine, it's wine. Was it a big drunk party? I don't think so. But was it really wine? Yes. It wasn't just juice. It was genuine, fermented, bubbly. Okay. That's what it really was. And so they had this at the wedding. They maybe had more guests than they anticipated. It's perhaps they underplanned. It's also perhaps that Mary came to Jesus and said, "You brought all these buddies with you, this dozen other people. We're out of wine. What are you going to do about it? Well, I'll just go down to, you know, Wines and More, and I'll get a couple of cases." Well, no, you're not going to do that, right? So notice what Jesus um, says to her when she approaches him and says, "They don't have any wine. They ran out of wine, son." Um, you and I might read that and say, "Oh, she's just making a fact." And I believe that's probably true. I don't want us to read into that she's pushing him or blaming him or anything. We don't always get that connotation out of it. However, we do know she knew things about him nobody else knew. She knew that with him nothing was impossible. And so his response to her is one that we might say is a little sharp, a little harsh to his mother.